Minutes to let everyone join. We appreciate your patience. Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us for the NewBlueFX Tyler Pro 3 webinar, Show Titles and Bumpers. My name is Adam Dolan and I'll be your moderator today. I'm joined by our VP of Products, Travis White.
Hello everybody.
If you have any questions during or after the webinar, or would like to share with your followers on Twitter, use the hashtag TylerPro3 and handle @NewBlueFX. In addition, you can ask questions during the presentation through the comment section of YouTube. This is located below the video stream. We'll be pausing briefly at the end of each section to answer a few questions. So just make sure if you have any questions from section to section, just ask those down there in the YouTube comments section. At this point, I want to introduce our VP of Products, Travis White. Travis has more than 15 years of experience in video and 3D applications. He developed more than 30 products and worked as a Hollywood editor. Today, he's going to show you how to create show titles and bumpers in Tyler Pro 3. Travis, welcome.
Thank you, Adam. How you doing, everybody? Again, I'm Travis White, and we're going to be working in Premiere Pro today. And I want to go on and just show you a bit of the things that we're going to be covering in this particular webinar. So with Tyler Pro 3, we are going to make an intro or an open title for this particular production that we're working on, which happens to be an architectural firm. And with that, we're going to show you how to make rich designs for texture and depth, bringing texture such as normal maps and depth as depth of field, and really give a nice space to the design rather than just simply 2D or flat titles. We're also going to make some bumpers for some different segments within the video. So as you guys know, when you're moving on to a different theme or idea within a show, it's often very useful to get some graphics and some titles working to mask a cut and introduce the new idea. And we'll be doing that as well. And we're going to be using EPS files, EPS objects, to do that. And you're going to see how to animate those EPS objects. And finally, once we create that bumper, we're going to be able to show you how to repurpose that bumper time and time again throughout your production by simply changing the text in Quick Edit, which is a great tool for a lot of efficiency and fast workflows without having to get into every title project and manually type it out. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into Premiere Pro, and we have a timeline here where we have this architecture firm, a little bit of interview material, and some buildings, and these buildings are at different towns, different places, and our job is to showcase kind of what these different areas are all about. The first thing we want to do is add in an intro title. So in your project bin, you simply go down to New Item and open up. This is where you do a new sequence or an adjustment layer. Right here is where you find NewBlue Pro 3. Now, I've already put one instance in. I'm going to go ahead and use that. So I'm going to drag that down to the timeline and go ahead and apply. So you can see we have the default entered text. I'm going to double click that title instance, and up pops Quick Edit. We're not going to use Quick Edit right now, but I'll just give a quick preview of what's here. For one, you can get into the title designer where you design titles. Also, right here is listed this one instance of Tyler Pro. The great thing about with Quick Edit, you can see all your instances throughout your whole project in here. We also have duration control as well as variable text, which we'll get into a little bit later when we do multiple bumpers. But first off, let me just click into Title Designer and get into the interface, and you can really see what's going on here. So the first thing that we want to do is just blow away this piece of text. So I'm going to right-click and delete my paragraph because I'm going to create a show open with some EPS files I was given. So we'll do File, Open, and we'll go grab an EPS file called, let's see, where's that guy? Oh, excuse me, I didn't do that right. I went to File, Open, and I needed to go File, Import Vector. Import Vector is where we'll find those EPS files. All right, so we'll go into Foundation for Form, and we'll bring in the logo and open that up. Now it's black right now, so what we're going to do is just change the color. We're going to go to Style and Color, and just apply any kind of color to that. In fact, if we wanted to keep it black, let's go ahead and keep it black and click OK. For the moment, for the time being, we can go under View and choose, let's say, a gray background to see what we're doing. So a lot of you guys are going to run into this a lot, as you often do with your clients. They have a particular development of their logo, and they have an EPS file or some kind of Illustrator file, and you're going to need to be able to work with that. So let's size that up a little bit. And if you notice, if we do a selection on the different parts of this EPS file, you'll notice that it's in different parts that were created. I recommend that you have an idea about how you want to animate your EPS file, and that you either combine or break up shapes accordingly. And for example, this whole word foundation is one shape, the word for is one shape, but F, O, R, M, those are individual shapes here that we can modify and rotate. For example, if I click the XYZ handle, I have full XYZ rotation control over that one EPS shape. Well, let's go ahead and turn this whole space to the side a little bit. It'll start adding some depth here. And in fact, let's go to our Settings tab, and I'm going to up the wide angle to maybe about 25, 26, something like that. Gives a little bit more of an extreme look with a wide angle for the lens. And now we want to animate this coming in. So let's go to maybe the third second there, and let's go to the Object tab, and we're going to use a keyframe to animate it falling in. So let's turn on keyframes, and let's go ahead and click the plus sign. If you change any parameters, it'll automatically add a keyframe, but I'm going to hit the plus sign here, and then I'm going to go back to the first keyframe and rotate this thing. There we go. And well as move it towards us. Now, I'd like to fly through the O, so let's do a little nudging in my position of Y and a little bit of position X. And finally, that Z position will flow right through there. So that's a nice one. We're going to click on Smooth Interpolation, so it's a nice smooth move. So there it is, falling down into this position right here. So another element that we have in the design is when I was given this AI file, it was not only this particular logo, it was also a number of lines, kind of a retro 50s, 80s kind of thing going on. So let's go to the beginning and click off of this paragraph. We'll do File, Import Vector, and we'll import that other vector element, which are the lines. So open that up, and now we have these great lines to work with. Now sometimes when you bring EPS files in, you might have some additional elements that you might not have been aware of, such as this red rectangle. I can just click that element and hit delete, and now that's out of my space. So we can rotate this to the side and start working maybe with some of these individual lines in Z space. So I'll click off of my XYZ handle and maybe pick one of these lines, and I'm rolling my mouse wheel right here. You'll see that my position Z is operating. So I could knock that back a bit. I could maybe grab this guy right here, knock that back, and just make some different depth choices that are going to be interesting to work with as we work with this. So if you want to get back to the whole paragraph, you can click outside of any individual object, or another alternative way, especially if clicking becomes a little difficult, you can right-click and say Select Object Parent, and that will get you up to the main object as well. So now you can see in 3D space we have a number of these lines that are at different positions going backwards. So that's a really great way to make something deep and feel deep. We're going to go ahead and move this to the center a little bit and size it up. Let's go ahead and move down our timeline where we have foundation for form coming into position, and notice that the lines are on top. So what we can do is simply go down to our timeline and reorder the tracks so that foundation for form is on top of those lines. In fact, we can select those lines again and size them to the side or what have you. So One thing we want to do is Foundation for Form has this animation to it, but the lines don't. So one thing that is a great time saver is we can go to the Foundation for Form paragraph and right-click and choose Copy Keyframe Set. And then we can go to the lines element and right-click and paste the keyframe set. Now we have a move with those lines. Now they're a little big because they took on the same value of size. Let's go to our Scale under our Object tab. Click on the lock here to keep our aspect ratio as we want it. There we go. In fact, we could just scoot those over a bit if we want. And then we'll click over to the first keyframe and do the same thing. Let's see, what value did we have? We had 11, a value of 11. So 11's a nice value, similar size there. So now they're coming down just about the right size there. So finally, let's go in and work with some of this EPS as far as extrusion and style and things of that nature. So I'll go ahead and click on this O here. So we have this sub-object of the EPS selected. And I'm going to go into the Style tab. The Style tab is where you develop a style of any character or any EPS shape or any of the simple shapes that come with Title or Pro. Notice down here we have this add shape, ellipse, rectangle, star. We won't be using those today, but you know that they're there. And right here we have one style layer. And we're just going to stick with one style layer, but there's a number of parameters within that style layer that we're going to work with. So the first thing we want to do is maybe change the color. So we could change something to maybe like a green or something like that, and bring in an extrusion. Notice the extrusion's happening. It looks pretty clean. One thing that's great to do is a bevel. So we can increase and add a bevel in here. Notice that there's two curves to this particular bevel. This great grid bevel creator, you can right-click and there's some presets: single curve, double curve, linear. I found that a really good bevel to create is something of a linear, but it has a really small curve at the corners. And that creates a nice burnished, kind of organic, it's been through the real world kind of effect, which is really nice. I'm going to bring that extrusion in just a little bit. It's a little too deep for my taste. And instead of a color, let's go ahead and put a texture on. So in this particular video, this architecture video, there was some art on in some of the foyers that were kind of that organic, soft paper, and I found a texture that has pretty much just that. I'll open up my browser, and there's a number of JPEGs here. You can also use PNGs with alpha, which is a great way to get some transparency, some alpha in there. But we're going to scrub down and look for, where is that guy? Maybe it's in another area. Pictures. I can't find my paper. Anyway, we'll use this tarnish right here. And we'll open that up. So we have this tarnish image, and we'll go ahead and bring in another element. Actually, on the sides right here, you'll see that there's this streaking lines here. We have different ways of mapping different elements to the side, or the way of taking the texture and mapping it differently. If you click Map to Side, you'll notice there's a much more organic kind of look. If I click the XYZ handle, you'll notice that that's a nice look. If I turn off Map to Sides, you get a different kind of look that's happening there. So the next thing we want to do on this texture is provide a material. So this material button really brings up a normal map, and normal maps are these great tools to play light off of your texture. So we'll go through a couple of them here. We'll hover over and get these different ones. And you'll see what it does is it works with shadow and highlight. It very much works with your lighting to get some very interesting things accomplished. we can go down here to let's say the greeting card element and bring in a very strong kind of look. If we want to test what this looks like when the lights are moving around, we can go to the Scene tab and click one of the lights and move that around in that nature, and you can really see how it's playing off the shadows and the highlights. But what I'm going to do here is simply set my lights back to the reset to none because I want that look. Maybe we'll just bring back light number 1 just a little bit and knock it down just a hair. So if we go ahead and play this again, we have this element coming into play. Now notice with my texture, there's this dark component to the texture I don't necessarily want. So I can click this object again and use this hand tool to simply stretch or reorient that texture, and that's looking pretty good. Finally, I want that O to, the style on the O to go on the F, the R, and the M, so I'm going to right click and copy style, and then go to paste style, paste style, paste style, and we have this nice look right here. Let's go ahead and play that in. This is probably a good point for any questions that might have come in, and we'll see if we can get your questions answered.
Thanks, Travis. The first question we had was someone had come in late that just wanted to see how you actually opened up Tyler Pro 3 in Adobe Premiere Pro.
Oh, sure. So let's close this down. In fact, let's take it down. Well, it's already on the timeline. To make a new title, simply in your project bin, go down to the item that's new item, or the button that's new item. That's where you make new sequences, where you make bars and tone. And right there you have NewBlue Titler Pro 3. Once you do that, click that. We'll close this down. It's in your bin, ready to be used in your timeline.
Great. Another question we had was regarding actually some of the transitions. Someone was asking if they have some transitions. They were wondering if they can actually use those transitions with Tyler Pro 3. And if actually, I'm wondering, do we have any more transitions that come with Tyler Pro 3?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, we haven't gotten into it yet. We will, but this is a good point to just go to the library. So in the library of Tyler Pro, you have a number of categories. Some of them effects, lighting, shapes and styles, a lot of presets of styles, and transitions is this other category. So there's 2 categories of transitions that come with your purchase of Tyler Pro 3. One of them is called animations, and the other one is called, starter pack. But you can add additional animations from NewBlueFX. So any of our effects that you use in your NLE timeline can also be repurposed in Tyler Pro. For example, we could go to maybe the light blends category and do something maybe like a RGB shift. And if we just hover over a preset, we instantly see what that RGB shift is going to look like. If I hover over another preset, it just gives me a real-time play, and I can really see what this is looking like. So you can see the power of just simply hovering over different elements, maybe a scanner, hovering over that and seeing what that looks like. And so it's a really fast way to work because you can just hover over all kinds of presets and see what's going on. And making more titles or more transitions, getting more transitions, really expands the creative opportunities that you have in Tyler Pro 3.
And you're allowed for customizations on those transitions?
Exactly. Now if we go ahead and drag and drop that down, and let's say this is the scanner at this point, now we have a transition on this design, and the transition has a number of parameters that it works with. So we have the direction of down, or maybe from right to left, that kind of element, and the color, and any particular elements about that transition.
But those are also included each with presets as well, so you can actually already pre-select what you're looking for.
That's right. In fact, we could drop down right here the presets. You can have a number of presets to work with.
Very cool. That's it for questions, but I just want to reiterate, if you have any questions, please use the comments section in the YouTube channel below the streaming video. We'll also be taking questions through our Twitter, hashtag TylerPro3, as well as the handle @NewBlueFX, or you can direct message us if you want to share your questions that way.
All right, so the last thing here, I noticed that when I put this on the timeline, I don't have any background. So in the particular point of this timeline, it is black. There's no video in the background per se. We don't have footage yet. So I want to make my own background in this open. So we'll go ahead into the beginning. We'll click off of any particular paragraph, so we're not adding to those. And we'll do a simple shape, add shape. We can do a rectangle. And let's size this up so it fills the screen. and stretch it to the side. And now we want to go into the Style tab. Again, this is where you have multiple style layers, but we'll just use one for now. Instead of doing a color, we'll pick a gradient. Now, what I want to do here is I want to make essentially a white scene, but I want a little bit of a vignetting or graying at the top and the bottom to give it an amount of space. So right now we have a 2-color gradient that we're working with. Let me jump in and do a 4-color gradient because that's really going to give us the most flexibility. So we'll evenly space them where they're going to make good sense, and then we will bring in a nice almost white there, something like that. And in this bottom one, we'll just bring in the essence. The top, we'll knock that down just a little bit as well. Maybe this is a little too dark. Something like that. And now, again, it's a new item, so it's been put on a top track. Let me drag that down to the bottom track so that when we play, we can see all this coming down in that gray space, and you see how that works out. So we'll go ahead and close that down to the timeline, and now we have that white background. We have this foundation for form, and the last thing we'll want to do is go to the effects. We could have done this within Titler, but it's just as easy to go to your video transitions, throw a little dissolve on the end of that transition there, end of the title, and then we get into our show. So the next thing we want to do is create a bumper for this show. So let's go back and bring in a new instance of Titler Pro. Here's a Titler instance that I haven't even used up yet. I created it previously. So I'll go ahead and drag this down to the timeline, double click it, and we have Quick Edit again. Now, just as a side note, if any of you aren't interested at any particular time in the Quick Edit features and you find it coming up all the time as just an additional step that you don't want at the moment, you can simply go into Settings and choose to always open to Title Designer. In this way, you'll always get the full designer every time until you change that setting. Or you can also click here, go to Title Designer, and inversely you can go back to Quick Edit in that way. So one thing that I do know with this particular bumper that I don't want a full 8 seconds. I just want it to be 4 seconds. So the duration field, I can just click 4 and hit Enter, and it's going to be a lot shorter. Let's go into the Title Designer. Actually, if we go ahead and close this down, notice that in my timeline, if I zoom in here, see how there's this dead material of where the end title just stops. So let's trim that down. So it's truly the 4 seconds that we want to use. Double click, get into the Title Designer here, and all right, so here's what we want to do. We want to use some text, and this is going to be an element in the video where we're looking at a new building in a new area. The architects want to talk about neighborhoods, and so we're going to put in a neighborhood that's near and dear to our heart, Hillcrest, where our office is. So we'll type that in, and let's get in a font that's going to make good sense. There we go. Size this up a little bit. And we'll do some little styling to this. So a great way, one little trick that I found that's a fun way to do a styling that has a nice depth to it is to add multiple faces and then offset them in the different locations. Let's go into that Style tab. Now so far we've only been using one style layer. But in this case we're going to start using multiple style layers. So let's add another style layer. So let's go to 3D Face. And with this we can move it to the side, move it up, and really, offset its position here. And finally, we can do a bit of an opacity change as well. So let's go ahead and add another one. Another face. Move it over here. Move it down. Change the opacity. And we can also change the layer depth in which it's operating. So let's add another one, and we'll do 2 more. Bring this down a bit, less opacity, and 1 more. Scoot it over, bring it up, and reduce its opacity. Now if I go to the XYZ handle of the main Hillcrest object, you'll notice that they are in 3D space with a certain amount of depth to them. So that's really nice. In fact, if I go back to the Object tab, I can reset the orientation of all these. So how do we get them to come in and go out? You could keyframe, But a really fun way and efficient way to get things done is to go to the library. And in the library, that's where you'll find all the transitions that we have to offer. And animations are a great way because they really look at the individual characters if you want, or individual lines, and do some interesting animation with that. So I want to go to something called Fly Past. And again, if I just hover over a preset, I can see what it's going to do for me. This is letter by letter, and it's got a little bit of a turn to it, and it's kind of got a good look. But I'm going to just do a simple drop. And we can double click, or we can drag and drop either to the workspace or to the timeline, doesn't matter. And here we have this simple drop happening. So let's go ahead and play that. That's good. And it has a smoothness of smooth. We could change fast in. That means that the curve is going to come quickly at the beginning and then settle more at the end. But I'm going to go ahead and keep it with smooth. And then to make a transition out, if you can use any other transition you want. You can actually stack up multiple transitions in the same position. But I'm going to do something quick, which is right-click, duplicate transition, and then I'm going to slap that transition to the end. I'm making it a transition out now, and I want to change the orientation of it. Well, I don't want to. Actually, just go ahead and play this. Comes down, holds, comes right back out at you. So that's a really quick way to get a nice animation going. Probably this is a good point to stop and ask for any further questions.
Thanks, Travis. One of the questions we had was regarding our lower thirds pack. Someone was wondering if they had lower thirds for Tyler Pro 2, and if they upgraded to Tyler Pro 3, would they still be able to use those lower thirds with Tyler Pro 3?
Yes, you'll definitely be able to use the lower thirds that you purchased within Tyler 3. For the rest of you who are listening, the lower thirds packs are additional collections that you can purchase from NewBlue, which are pre-designed lower thirds. So if I go back to the library here, we can go under the project templates. That's where you'd find them, and do something like maybe the on-air collection. So what happens here, if I just hover, I mean, you kind of get the theme here, right? If I just hover over one of these lower third presets, you're going to see what it's doing. So you got these different elements coming in this way, and you can see how the lower thirds are coming in. Again, lower thirds are complete designs, complete projects, so they do completely take over. If I just stop hovering, I'm back to the project that I've been working on here. But those are great things, especially with Quick Edit, with the replaceable text, and where you have one design and multiple instances in your timeline. The lower thirds are great to work with.
Thanks. Another question we had was regarding Tyler Pro 3 as a standalone product. Is that an option, or is it only working within Premiere Pro?
There is an option for standalone as well. It comes with your version of Tyler Pro 3 that was working with your Premiere Pro or your After Effects. You just find the executable. It's called Tyler Pro Standalone, and click that, and off it goes, and it runs on its own. And there's a couple good things about that. If you want to do title design without any particular project in mind, and you just want to get maybe your company open together, or you want to get some, you have one design and you want to riff on that for a little bit, you can simply open up Tyler Pro and open up the NB title file, which is a project file format that we have. You simply go up to File, Save As, and Open, and you'll get those NB title files. You can also work on a project and come down to Export Package. This is really great, where you can, if you export a package, not only does it take the NB title file project, but also collects all the textures, whether the videos or images that you used, and all the fonts you used, as well as the EPS shapes, and packages that all up into one zip. So this is really great for collaboration. If you want to deliver that title project to another editor, or archive it for yourself for later use. And then finally, running standalone, exporting video files is very helpful. So we can export an MOV file with alpha. We can also export an image file. So if you happen to be working in an environment where not everyone has Tyler Pro yet, or it doesn't make sense for them to be operating it wherever they're at, you can be rendering out raster video files or still images for them to use that have alpha already embedded.
Another question we had was regarding we had shown some presets and some things that came before. Folks are wondering, do we actually have these different style packs or presets that come with Tyler Pro 3 already, and kind of what's the offering there.
Right, okay. So let's go back in the library here, and let's go under Styles. And there's some basic styles. Again, with my Hillcrest text here, if I select it, that's the thing, you need to select it so Tyler Pro knows where you want to apply this. I can just hover over some of these basic styles and see what's happening there. You can also go into the cinematic category, which comes with Tyler Pro as well. Some nice looks in here. We also have a fun category that's a little more garish and a little bit depending on your style, right? The Hillcrest collection is one of the additional style packs that you could purchase. So basic, cinematic, fun, those all come with Tyler Pro 3, and then we have additional style packs called Hillcrest, Midtown, Muirlands, Soledad is one of my favorites. It has some really good looks in there. So those are the options that you have for acquiring styles. But of course, if you have any style like the one we're working on right now, I can go to File, Save Preset, Save Style Preset, and I can save off my own style for later use, and it's going to appear in this category called My Styles.
Great. Well, that's all the questions we have for now. Again, I just want to reiterate, if you have any questions, be sure to use our YouTube comment section to ask questions, as well as our hashtag TylerPro3 or our handle at NewBlueFX.
Okay, well let's turn this piece of text really into a bumper, and then just the notion of a bumper is that you want enough graphic material coming in that it really obscures the cut. So we want some large elements. So we could do things like go into the shapes and add an ellipse or a rectangle or star, but we are going to go in and bring in another EPS file. So let me do File, Import Vector, and we'll go to our folder, and we have this 5 segments vector shape right here. And so we could go with all the typical styling that we do with regular pieces of text. So again, we're back in that Style tab, Style Layers. It's no different. In fact, if we click right here, we can rotate and see what this looks like, and I can start pushing different z-depths of these different objects in the parent EPS file, and right-click and select the object parent and continue turning. Maybe reset our rotation here, and we could do things like put a little bit of a gradient on there, a nice gradient. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to bring in a video texture. So let's go into our folder where our videos are located, and this is the one I want. There we go. So now we have this nice video texture happening inside each of the EPS objects. Now you could use it this way, of course. Notice there's a little bit of an offset here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the textures on each of these objects so it looks like it's one scene that's been sliced up in an interesting way. So I click one of the objects and I go to my hand tool, and now I can move that texture around on that object wherever I want. Well, what's going to make sense here is actually if we just pretty much get to the whole screen of our production. That's going to work really well. So I'll do it that way. Click off of that. We'll go on to the next object, and we'll reposition something like that. Close enough. No one will be able to tell if it's perfect or not. Some vertical sizing. And the fourth one here. Again, notice I'm just coming to the center, and then I'm sizing up the aspect to pretty closely match our whole production. Something like that. And then we have our final object where I can move the size or move the texture as well. All right. So now we have a video that's playing right inside those 5 objects in a very interesting way. Now it's on top of the text, unfortunate. Well, let's go ahead and go back down to the timeline and reorder our tracks so that the 5 segments is now below. So we have these 5 segments here. we want them to come in and go out in interesting ways. So let's go back to the library. We can find those transitions. And a neat transition that I found for this was fly in. So if I just hover over a preset, you'll see again, and it instantly plays your whole production, how those 5 different segments in that one EPS file are flying in individually. And why is that? Is that because it's looking at each object in the EPS file just as if it was each character of a piece of text. So we can go over a couple of them. I like this, let's see, letters right. Let's look at what that looks like. There we go. They kind of have a nice move in. I'm going to click letters right and bring that in. Those look good. I'm going to be lazy and right-click and duplicate this transition and slap it to the end. And but I do want a different behavior. Notice they come in from the right, and for whatever reason, it doesn't necessarily feel good for them to go back out towards the right. So I want to change some of the parameters in this transition. So we have 2 transitions on this paragraph, hence in the Transitions tab, we have 2 transitions here. And I want to change the angle of how these fly. So that's probably about 50. I'm going to just type in 50 here. And now they're flying out at the left, but the order that they're flying is not quite the order that I want. Let me click this reverse checkbox, and now that makes a lot more sense. They'll fly that way. We also want to have a bit of a push. Now I could do a push with another animation, but I'm going to do it with keyframes here. So I want these objects, just as the hill crest is flying at me, I want these EPS panels to fly at me as well. So let's go to the Object tab, turn on keyframing, and let's go ahead and click this plus sign to add a keyframe at this position. And then at some position later on, we want to take the Z space, or the Z depth, and fly it up, and maybe 250, something like that. And you can drag the keyframes anywhere you want. So you can drag it maybe this position. We do want to turn on smooth interpolation. So now that we have this nice move that's really going to fly at the viewer, distract them from the cut, and change the scene. The final thing that we want to do here is that this video, as great as it is, and it's some B-roll from the production, it's a little too busy for us to easily read Hillcrest. So I want to do some treatment to it. So we'll go back to the library and work with some effects. So let's close down transitions, open up effects, and there's 2 categories that come with Titler Pro 3. One is animations, for which you can find roll and crawl, a float, pan, turn, those kinds of things. And there's a neat starter pack that has a number of effects in it. But I'm going to go into what's called Video Essentials 2, I think. Let's see. No, I'm going to go into Art Effects. That's where I want to go. And there's this great effect called Duochrome. So Art Effects is another collection of effects that you can find from NewBlueFX. They work great in your NLE timeline just as effects, and they do double duty inside of Titler Pro. So I can hover over any of these presets, and this Duochrome, it probably does what you expected to do. It takes 2 different colors and colorizes your image in those colors there. Maybe a little bit of a fire glow. That's looking maybe closer to what I want. I'm going to double click and apply that, but I'm going to adjust the colors just a little bit. Let's bring the colors in really gently, maybe a pale blue and a little more of a softer orange, something like that. Let's see how this looks as I scrub away, especially with the sky here. Maybe we'll do a little bit more blue in the sky. Something like that. That's good enough. Maybe back off the color just a skosh. There we go. So now we have Hillcrest being seen much more easily, and we'll go ahead and close this down. And now we can see this operating on the video. I'll go ahead and play the video, and you can see what it looks like to mask that cut and go into the new scene. So now the question is, how do we use this to actually, you know what? We'll change something here. The panels, they could be larger, right? They could be larger to mask more of what's going on, and we'll do that change. Well, now we have this opportunity here. We've made 1 bumper. How do we make multiple bumpers? Well, we want to get some new instances of Titler Pro down. So let's go ahead and click the new item, Titler Pro 3, and we'll just get it in the bin, and we'll plop it down to another position that we like. Let's change it to the 4 seconds again. and shave that down. I probably should have done that when Quick Edit first opened. And we'll put in another Titler Pro instance, 4 seconds, and get that down at a later position in time. And so now we can go to any of these and double click and get into Quick Edit. Now notice that we have 4 different titles all throughout our timeline. So this first title, this is the foundation for form open. So you could get in here and go into Title Designer and edit something. You can go to this next one called Hillcrest. You can see the Hillcrest logo right, or the text right here, and you can see the text field right here, and you'll see how that's operating. And then you have Enter Text and Enter Text. Well, how do those guys get the style from Hillcrest? Well, any of these titles, we can go up to File and choose to add the current title to the template list. So we'll go ahead and do that. Let's give it a name. We'll just call it Bumper and hit Save. And now we have this. We have a lot of preset kind of templates in here, but in here is Bumper. So we'll pick Bumper, and so now we can go to this next item, which is Enter Text, and we can type in something like North Park and template Bumper. And then we can go to the next one, and we can do University and template Bumper. We'll close down Quick Edit, and now watch what happens. We have North Park. If I scrub down the timeline, we have University. If I scrub up the timeline, we have Hillcrest. And so now you can see how with one template design, we've been able to take care of multiple pieces of text. Let's say, oh, North Park, I did or did not forget a space. I just jump around which text or which title do I want to operate on, and go ahead and hit North Park and add the space or delete the space or whatever I need to do. Now there's another thing happening here. Maybe I want North Park to pop a little bit more, or the text to pop a little bit more, and we also talked about the EPS shape not being nearly as large as we'd like. So we go into Title Designer and work a little bit more. One thing we can do is go to the Style. North Park is selected, and we can hit maybe an outline and bring a new outline in. Let's do that. It's a layer depth of 0, and maybe a thickness not so thick. The color, maybe we want to be a little bit more white or a gray, something like that. So it has a little bit more of a pop. And the segments, I want them to be larger. Let's get on the keyframes, because keyframes are going to maintain and remember size. And let's just up the ante on the size of these objects here. And if we go into the Object tab, we'll notice that we're about that big. Let's go back to keyframe 1. Well, let's see how this plays. This might just be really nice. There we go. It's kind of growing towards us and then flying right at us. So that's pretty good. Now the last thing that we want to do, because all of these elements really have these different Z spaces to them, is we want to get a depth of field applied. So let's go to the Scene tab and turn on, notice we have this depth of field category, turn on depth of field. Look what happens. Turn it off, turn it on. North Park is right at the focal distance. In fact, if I work with the focal distance, I can see panels from behind. I can come up to North Park. I can see panels in front. This is going to be a really great way of working with your title, so it's a very fun, depth-filled kind of production. So let's keep it at 500 because that looks like the good focal distance. But we can work with our aperture to bring in more or less of the front-to-back distance in focus. That's probably good. Yeah, let's see. There we go. And now, as it's flying around, notice when objects are flying into view, they're coming in and out of focus accordingly. So now let's go ahead and close this, and we're presented with a question. It's like, hey, do you want to apply all these changes you just made just to this one title, or apply it to the title template for which multiple titles are looking at? Well, I want to apply this to the title template. And so now when we do that, now every one of these titles has the larger panels, it has the depth of field going on. It has, if we go to this one right now, it still has Hillcrest, but has the depth of field and the larger panels. And finally, this last one, University, has the same thing going on as well. So I hope that gives you an idea of how you can quickly make design adjustments to a template, have it ripple through your timeline, and this is probably another good time for questions.
Thanks, Travis. One of the questions we had was regarding the on-air lower thirds pack, the lower thirds packs that we were mentioning before, and how those work with Quick Edit. And just can you show maybe using the lower third, one of the lower thirds from that pack, and then using the Quick Edit to edit within those templates?
Sure. So let's do a new instance. Let's say, discard changes. Get out of this. We'll just do a whole new title here. Open up in our bin, Tyler Pro 3. OK, and click in Title Designer to get to that library. And we'll go into the project templates, and let's do one of the on-airs, for example. So let's say this cobalt look. We have this nice cobalt look, typing in here. We'll double-click it because we want to have this lower third. Now, there's a couple elements here. The text is what we want to be changeable. We want that to be variable, right? Well, let's click on name, last name. And in the Object tab, something we haven't gotten to in this particular webinar, but we did in the previous one. There's great tutorials on it, but I'll quickly touch on it. We have this checkbox called text variable. If I turn on text variable and maybe give this a name, like name, that's my label for what that is. This is going to be exposed as a field inside Quick Edit, and you'll see what I mean. Let's also go to the write your lower third subtitle here piece of text. Let's turn on the text variable and say subtitle. We'll close this down, get it down to the timeline. Here it is, and we'll scoot it down a little bit. There it is. If we open it up in Quick Edit, notice there's two fields to work with. So we could do the name, let's see, architect guy, and subtitle. I own this joint. And you can actually see an instant preview right here. If I close down, you can see that it now is architect guy, I own this joint. And if you then bring in another title, let's just move it somewhere. Let's see. Let's go down the line a little bit in our production. It's just an enter text. I can open up Quick Edit under the templates. Pick whatever template I want. Or you know what? That one guy wasn't made a template yet. Let's go back to the architect guy. File. Hey, make this current title a template, and we'll call it architect. Now he's available as a template for other use. So let's go back down to this enter text one. Pick architect. Type something new. The other guy. Close it down. Now the other guy. He says he owns this joint. So you have two different lower thirds with different pieces of text. I covered this already, but if you click in here, Title Designer, say, you know what, blue's not cool. I want something different. I want like maybe a nice orange, something like that. Click OK, close it. It says, hey, only this title or to all the templates? We'll say, well, or to the template that many titles are looking at. Well, hey, I'm going to apply it to this template. And now we have the other guy, he's kind of golden, and architect guy is golden. The nice thing is we have multiple templates going in this one timeline. So we have these two lower thirds doing their job, whereas we have these bumpers doing their job. We can click to those bumpers there. So we can have multiple templates to achieve multiple purposes all in one project file.
Great. Another question we had, Travis, was regarding the save preset and then loading up the presets. Can you just run through the process of doing that in terms of just,
saving a preset?
Just I think you changed one of the colors there. Just save that and then just showing you how to save and then upload so they can see the final results.
So this North Park look where it has kind of these offset pieces, we want to save this as a style, is what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we have North Park selected. We go to File, Save Preset, Save Style Preset, and we can call this preset underscore, let's say multi-title. We'll call this style. And go ahead and save. And let's say, let's just do new. File, new. Apply to this title. So there, we've totally wiped the slate clean, right? And I'll type in something like Midtown and go to the library. Go into the styles, my styles, and I'm looking for that multi-title. That's my preset that I just saved. So I still have the text I just typed, Midtown, but I can drag and drop and apply the style that I had saved as my style.
Great. Thanks, Travis.
You're welcome.
Another question we had was regarding title length. I think there was a 8-second default length in version 2. And wondering if there's a way to kind of get that default set so it's a bit longer, or and basically how they can kind of extend that.
How they can work with duration. Exactly.
Yep.
Well, if you look right here in the Titler Pro 3 UI, we actually have 2 duration fields, and this is something we covered in a previous webinar. We have some great tutorials on. This is something called Elastic Timeline. And over here on the bottom right is the duration, 8 seconds, referencing the default duration, 8 seconds of this particular project timeline. Notice here on the timeline we have 8 seconds of material. However, there's this other field over here, and this is the Elastic Timeline field. So there's a couple different ways you can go. If you're not using Elastic Timeline, all you do is come down here and you change the duration in the bottom right field. However, if you want to use Elastic Timeline, what this is you can design at a given length. I've been designing these bumpers at 4 seconds, right? But you know what? I want to save those bumpers and use them in multiple places, and darn it, if I need it to be longer. And so what you can do, let's say Midtown, let's get out of this one. Let's go to one of the, I replaced it, as you can see, University here. Open up Quick Edit. And I don't want it to be 4 seconds. I want it to be something longer. Well, let's go into Title Designer and look at the Elastic Timeline properties. So, one of the Elastic Timeline properties is like we could even design this to be 8 seconds long. We could do it that way. But we want, in fact, let me draw out these elements, 8 seconds long. But we want animations to be within a certain range. So let's say these are flying in, and the transition is taking up so long, about this position right here. And this fixed region in the front, this orange region, I want to cover this whole open point because I want it to last the same duration. So there we go. Maybe I want it to actually last a little shorter, maybe 2 seconds. And I'm going to say that this fixed region is about 2 seconds long. And then this final region, so there it is, it jumped. Why did it jump? Because I actually have a 4-second design with an 8-second Elastic final project file. So let's go ahead and move these outs to about here. And so we'll close this down. Apply to this title. We're just going to apply to this title here. So we have this title doing its business. Let's see. University, in and out. It's only 4 seconds long. What we could do is we can stretch this out. If we go into Quick Edit and say, you know what, I want this to be 12 seconds long. Hit Enter. Let's see. There we go. I can actually extend this out to be a full 12 seconds long, and it's going to have the behavior that I want because of Elastic Timeline. So the first animation didn't become slower per se. It's that same amount of time, but that's going to hang out for quite some time, right where I had the end position. So that's how Elastic Timeline can work with changing the durations and the lengths.
Great.
And we have some great tutorials on how to get that done. In fact, I think we have a 60-second studio on that, right?
We do, yes.
So those are great to learn from.
Yep. And just lastly here, we had a question regarding the After Effects. I know you mentioned earlier we're compatible, but was there anything else that comes with After Effects Edition that's they should be on the lookout for?
Well, being After Effects and what it is, there are some additional abilities that you have there that you might not have that you don't have in an NLE. And what those are is you can make the title design as we've been working with them now, but then it can take on in its render the camera position in After Effects, as well as it respects the lighting conditions of After Effects. So you can make a title, put it down in your composition, and then as you move the camera around in your After Effects composition, Titler Pro is going to respect where that is located and render the appropriate view. Also, you can choose to use Titler Pro 3 lights to light your title object, or you can use the After Effects lights, or a combination of both. And then finally, as After Effects is kind of a faux 3D environment, it's 2D but has 3D planes going on there, you can have another layer, another 3D layer, obscure your title, so there's obscuration happening there as well. So those are a couple of the additional features that you can utilize when you're using Titler Pro 3 inside After Effects.
Great, thanks. I think that's all we had, all the questions we had for today. If we have any additional ones coming through comment section, I'll make sure to get to you, as well as through our Twitter or adding our handle at NewBlueFX.com. If you're interested in finding more information about Titler Pro 3, you can visit www.newbluefx.com/TP3webinar3. You'll find information about we have all of our 60-second studios, some of the tutorials Travis was referencing, as well as images and feature lists, as well as specifications, all the details you'll need to get a good idea of Titler Pro 3 and to purchase what you've seen today. For more resources, you can visit our tutorials page at www.newbluefx.com/tutorials, as well as for any help files, those are at www.newbluefx.com/product_help. You can also visit our support page at newbluefx.com/support. We have a Get Satisfaction FAQ forum section there, and that's just at /search-forum. You can also reach out to our support team at support@newblueinc.com. They'll be sure to answer any questions that you might have had from this webinar or any additional questions about Titler Pro 3. That's going to do it for us. That wraps up Titler Pro 3 Show Titles and Bumpers webinar. Again, feel free to ask any questions to our support team or through Twitter, and then all of your questions can still be answered on our YouTube page as well. Keep an eye out for the full webinar in an email that will be following up after the webinar. And on behalf of Travis White, as well as the NewBlueFX team, thanks for joining us today, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Happy editing.